Today's webinar is brought to you by our Power Up series. And get ready to be inspired by the entrepreneurs and innovators you'll hear today. So what we're going to do is first I wanted to share with you our sponsors and thank them. Our contributing sustainers is Accenture, Amazon, Capital Metro, Goodwill Central Texas, RSM, the City of Austin Small Business, Visa, and our supporting sustainers, the Austin Technology Incubator, KView, and the Statesman. So I'd like to introduce our host for today's webinar. Joy Miller is the program manager for the City of Austin Small Business Program. The Small Business Program seeks to foster the success of Austin small businesses through services and support from classes and one-on-one business coaching. So please welcome Joy Miller.
Thank you, Lynn. The City's Small Business Program is charged with helping Austinites create and grow small businesses through no-cost and low-cost services. During this stressful time, we are keeping business owners informed through the compilation of available grants, loans, and coaching services offered by the city, other government agencies, and area nonprofits. Info can be found at Small Biz Austin, that's B-I-Z, smallbizaustin.org/resources, and atxrecovers.org. You'll see those on your screen. The city is committed to both health recovery and economic recovery for all its citizens. Today, we're fortunate to have Lee Christie as moderator of our webinar. Lee is Senior Vice President of Global Technology and Innovation with the Chamber. Lee works with key community leaders on innovation, international business, and growth capital, and she's a fabulous moderator. Lee, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Joy, and welcome everyone. We're so thrilled to have you all with us today, and it's such an absolute pleasure that we will be introducing 3 key CPG founders and entrepreneurs that have their businesses launched in Austin and are really innovating at this time during COVID. So it's my pleasure to introduce these 3 wonderful women. One is Hima Reddy. She's the founder and CEO of Crafty Counter. The second is DJ Lozada. She is the founder and chief visionary officer of Soul Pop Popcorn. And then 3, we have Martha Pinkoffs. Martha is the founder of Hot Dang, and she's also the co-founder of Waking Giants. So with that, I'd love to launch into a conversation and spend most of our time digging into these best practices that our founders have put in place, how they're doing through COVID, and what they see for the future, as well as kind of telling us really how they got started with their ideas and put it on a shelf somewhere in Austin and beyond. So with that, let's welcome DJ, Martha, and Hima.
Hi, thank you.
Oh my goodness, we've got superpowers up. Welcome, ladies. How are you this morning?
Great. How are you, Lee?
We're doing really well. So, I really want to spend the bulk of our time really highlighting what you have created through your ideas and how you took that big idea of yours and put it on a shelf. And then what best practices you have for other entrepreneurs who may be at home right now really thinking of launching a product, especially now. We hear a lot of research that's coming out and results that accelerators are really growing right now with how many people are looking to go into an accelerator with an idea or launch a business. So looking forward to kind of getting your feedback. So my first question to the panel is, how did you land on your product idea? And I want to launch this with Martha and how the idea of Hot Dang. Let's start with Hot Dang and how that really became an idea that you put on the shelf.
Kelly, it's really funny because I'm not actually a vegetarian, but I did not love I'm a conscientious meat eater. I don't eat it all of the time. And, I would go out to restaurants and not be super excited about the vegetarian burger choices, mostly because I didn't recognize the ingredients. It was like in the day when it was all, texturized vegetable protein and stuff like that. There's been so much innovation in the space that there's really a lot of choice now. But my wife and I were actually not yet married and in the middle of a year-long challenge of eating all of our meals at home. I was cooking everything from scratch, from local ingredients. And one day I just made this vegetarian burger. And it was, I remember wild rice, brown rice, barley, cashews, rolled oats, eggs, and mustard was the very first one. And it was one of those things that I just watched people light up when they had it. And it was so simple. Because we were in the challenge, I'd spent a ton of time at the farmer's market. And so I'd fallen in love with that ecosystem. That's where so many businesses in the food space launch. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to try this. And so I, put a modest amount of money towards design and rented space from the soup peddler. And I would make the patties and freeze them and take them to the farmer's market and cook them. And that is how that started. So.
Well, so Hema, so you have a product as well, and I know you have a family, and I think you began with kind of hearing from your kids how great your product was. Is that right?
That's right, Lee. Well, first of all, thanks for having us and hosting this panel. That's really how it started. And sometimes, things like laziness can prompt you to innovation. I just didn't want to cook every other day. And I was at IBM and I was traveling and, I wanted to really make sure that when my son was about a year old, that he and I, and my husband eat or make better food choices that don't involve preservatives. And how can I get everything in our bodies that has a good amount of protein, a good amount of vegetables, some, dietary fiber, and how do I do that in less than 10 minutes, right? That was the challenge. So I started making a lot of foods, pasta sauces, stews, and fish cakes, nuggets. And of all the things that I make, of course, every kid loves chicken nugget. And that really saved me in a lot of those hangry moments when he was literally holding onto my feet and all I could do is just pop some in the oven. And so I realized how transformational it is and what the power is in frozen foods and how it helped me sleep more peacefully at night, knowing that I did my job. Because before kids, I couldn't care less. I would eat a Best West burger on 6th Street at 2 a.m. But as a parent, it's just something inside you stirs and you realize you're the first line of defense and you need to do better than what you would for yourself because you've got another creature in your house. That's really how it got started. And when I saw my family, friends, neighbors respond to just eating these foods that were very nutritious in profile, but nobody could really question that, okay, there's cabbage in it. I mean, try having a 2-year-old eat cabbage, like as if they're in love with cabbage. Not going to happen with, most of the kids. Of course, there are those that are great eaters, but so that's really how it got started. I wanted to solve a pain point, and as a person, I was always a restless soul, always tinkering with some other, business idea, even in my corporate job. So that really triggered it. And when you see the transformation, you see the outcomes, you want to share it with the other families across the country. So that was the turning point for me.
So thank you. So DJ, you have a ton of amazingly unique flavors of popcorn. So when you were coming up with Soul Popped, what was your initial idea of why Soul Pop need to exist? And then how did you expand into so many different flavors?
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having this panel and including me in it. Soul Popped really was born out of the idea that I love popcorn, my family love popcorn, and I have a son who has texture issues. He's on the autism spectrum, he has Asperger's, and so introducing new flavors to him was sometimes challenging when he was eating popcorn. And so as a serial entrepreneur, I realized that if you're going to do something, if you're not innovating, then why do it? And so I thought about, what could I do that was authentic to me, which my heritage is soul food. I'm from the deep South of North Carolina, and so this is the food I grew up with, and I knew that no one else was doing anything with soul food in the snack space. It was already being elevated in fine restaurants. I mean, you can go into a restaurant and spend $50 on a bowl of shrimp and grits. Easy to me, but there you go. So I thought, let's do that with snack food, and Soul Pop was born.
So when Soul Pop was born, and just like Hot Dang and Crafty Counter, I mean, did you think about branding? I mean, did branding ever come up in your mind or in your thought process of when you were first launching your idea into a market? And if it did it then change once you tested the market? Or like Martha, you were sharing you were at the farmer's market. I mean, when you were at the farmer's market and you were taking that space, how were you branding, or how did you know how to brand what you were selling when you first started out?
So I think about first. Like, as soon as I have the recipe locked or the thing that I want to try locked, I like immediately think about brand, because people eat first with their eyes. That's true when they're shopping. You've got to get their attention. And Hema and I have spent a lot of time talking about brand together. But my packaging did change from the farmer's market to the shelf. And what was really craft and gorgeous, and I have an old label that I'll pull out and show you, was just a little bit too low key when it was then competing with a grocery store shelf full of things. And so we had to iterate on the process then and really like bring the ingredients forward, because that's what we were selling, was this clean food. And so, I had to give up a little bit of the neatness of the design in order to communicate more directly what was in the box when people had less time to engage with it. So there's definitely an evolution in the brand.
Emma, did you experience a little bit of the same?
Absolutely. So for me, personal brand and what you are bringing to market matters before even the product. And I'd read a couple of books about it where I really wanted there to be a trust in our immediate circle. So I started as a food blogger first. When I quit my position, my full-time job, I literally spent about a couple of years building the ecosystem around me, but also really putting myself out there as a food blogger, because I really did care about recipes, about foods, about just making different kinds of well-balanced meals. And so once I had built that kind of circle of supporters and friends who thought alike, that's when I introduced the food element to it, or the product element to it. And then there's already a trust behind the brand that you're launching. So I didn't have to convince my neighbors, for example, to buy the product. They were our first, supporters. And so that was definitely true. And I also had a very low-key packaging, like Martha was talking about earlier, when I started selling my product in the farmer's market. And then when I had that external validation that was beyond my sister and my next door neighbor, that's when I invested into a better packaging, and we launched with retail stores.
Okay, and so DJ, you're already, you're now opening up brick and mortar at the malls now. So congrats on that.
Thank
So
you.
as you've kind of moved through this process, I mean, has the branding or what you're packaging, has that kind of evolved through the process or over time? Or are you still looking at the same type of branding that you had when you first launched?
Well, for Soul Popped, it all kind of went hand in hand. The cornerstone for me when I started to ideate about what this product was and what I wanted it to be was authenticity. And so I remember I started at the farmer's market as well. And when I went through school, we're very clean. We use all natural ingredients and no preservatives. We only cook in coconut oil and we use non-GMO kernels. So the feedback I got initially was, you can't put a clean product in a black bag. Nobody's gonna buy it. And I said, but it's like, that's not done. And then I went, well, that's why I want to do it, because nobody else is doing it. I don't want to do what everybody else is doing, you know? And so our signature black bag, we call our tuxedo bag. It actually started winning awards before the product did. I actually dreamed about the logo. I saw my logo in a dream, and I got up, and I'm not very artsy. I sketched it out, and then I found a digital designer who could transform it into a polished logo. And so we've, you know, the only update we've made so far on the branding and our tuxedo bags, it's designed to look like tuxedo. So the top is supposed to be a cummerbund, the black bag is the pant leg, and then the stripe is the accent down the pant leg. And that's kind of an homage to my military background, because when you're in your dress blues or your dress greens, there's always a stripe down the side of your pant leg. And so there was a lot of thought that went into it, but it was thought that mattered to me. And I just hope that my vision would translate well to my customers. And it really did. I mean, from day one, when we started at the farmer's market, we call them our soul poppers. We have this very loyal legion of soul poppers. And my brand has really grown just by word of mouth. And, you know, we've been able to move the product literally to 9 countries around the world where we shipped soul pop to, but just based off of word of mouth from our customers. So we feel really proud that our brand is working so well for us.
Okay, and so on that, I mean, DJ, that's amazing. And each of you have kind of talked about how you built this brand following, right? And we're hearing, especially now during COVID time, that now is the time to really bring more value to customers and to be in touch with your current customers. So during this process, though, even leading up to today, how did you grow brand loyalty and customer loyalty? And how did you find those customers who were going to latch on to what you were selling? What did that look like? Martha, do you want to launch that?
It looks like hustle. And it looks like, you know, doing what you say you're going to do. So for hot dang, for me, that looked like making the patties and knowing exactly where the ingredients had come from and being able to like drill down and tell the story of like the specific farmer that I was sourcing wild rice from, to going to the grocery store and demoing product and engaging with the customers and taking hard feedback and taking great feedback, and just being tirelessly there and in it and believing in it and getting up every day and delivering and making. And I mean, it looks like a hustle.
Emma, what about you?
Absolutely. To add to what Martha said, it is not easy. You're willing to, you know, live and breathe every moment with it, you know, in it. If you're willing to sacrifice several, I've missed how many field trips, you know, with my kids, I can't count. But those are some of the sacrifices you make. But also I get to pull my kids into like a store demo. So we make up with it. So your work and your life are so gelled together. And if you're okay with it, if you're able to find peace in it, then it works out beautifully. So for us, the brand loyalty was not settling on anything. There were plenty of manufacturing plants that were using canola oil, for example, or soybean oil. I wanted our product to be free of top 8 allergens. I didn't want 30% breading on our nuggets. Why have empty calories? I wanted single ingredient breading. So we used chickpea flakes as our breading versus just having processed flours or very highly, processed panko breadcrumbs. So when you don't settle and you provide that superior value to your customers, then automatically they see that in your product, in your brand, and you get a larger lifetime value with your customers. But you have to stand for those values, and they don't come easy. Sometimes it takes a long time to take a product to market, only because you're different.
Well, and so building on that, go ahead, DJ. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to add.
You're good.
That's what, Hema and Martha are both saying. Besides childbirth, this is literally the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But,
Well
you
said.
know, I started my company with $53 in my bank account. Like that's all I had to my name. So Soul Pop was really born out of necessity in that manner, because I had to figure out how to rebuild my life. And, you know, it's amazing how many ways you can cut corners. And I'm really happy that I spent these 3 years really getting to know my brand, getting to know what the full potential of it could be. And, you know, not jumping with the first co-packer that wanted to come and say, hey, I could take your to market, but we're going to have to change your oil, and we're going to have to change your ingredients. And just really taking the slower route, I think, has really helped me to understand my product a lot better, and have a comfort with my soul poppers, the people who believe in me and believe in the product. They've stuck with us, and they really are responsible for bringing people along. And so, you know, it's multiple routes to go. And I chose not first. I wanted Soul Pop to be an experience brand. See the vision of how it could be an experience brand, you know, on the shelf. It wasn't the time for that for me. And so now, you know, it's funny, right? Timing is everything. I just found my first co-packer, established that relationship, and then the pandemic hit. So everything is about timing too. But, you know, what these ladies are saying is very, very true. It resonates a lot with me that our journeys are all kind of different, but they're similar. And it's a great place to be.
Well, and I think that's a great point to add in here, and maybe kind of reflecting on, you know, they always say hindsight's 20/20, right? And so if you were to sit down with a budding entrepreneur or an entrepreneur who wanted to go into the CPG space and really wanted to know, you know, what are those top 3 to 5 things I need to be thinking about when I'm launching my idea, or even looking at, is this a product idea that I should move forward with? I mean, we've kind of talked about brand. DJ, you just kind of brought up money, but what in each of your opinions would you say are 3 to 5 of the basic key questions or points as a starting point for a new entrepreneur? Martha?
So I love having this conversation with new entrepreneurs, especially in the food space. There are so many things to think about, but I think one of the most important is, like, where does this fit in the life that you want to live? Because you can be consumed by it, and you can go the route where you're trying to hit a home run, and maybe we should, start thinking about what that means differently. Maybe there's not a universal definition of a home run, but like some businesses you can grow sustainably, but you have to sell. I underestimated how many veggie burgers you have to sell to be profitable. I mean, like, you got to sell a lot of veggie burgers to make money. And so at a certain point, you have to start thinking about who your partners are going to be if you don't have the financial capacity to just underwrite growth, because it's incredibly expensive to grow, especially in the grocery store world. And so just to be able to sort of shine light on what some of those inflection points will be for a business, I think is really rewarding, because you can just sort of help people see a little bit into the future and how these decisions are going to impact, like, what their next 5-10 years looks like.
Okay, Emma?
Absolutely agree. It gets very expensive very fast. And if you have a 5-year plan, it's very important to know that, okay, if I want to be in 1,000 stores, how much money can it possibly take? Because here's the thing, getting an account or getting a retail distribution is only the beginning. You still have to sell the product every day, every week, every month, and it's expensive. Those marketing promotions inside the stores can be very expensive. If your product is frozen, e-commerce is not an immediately viable channel strategy either, because again, it's expensive to ship with foam containers and dry ice or even cold chain shipping. So all those factors, it's so important to work with a good finance person to include all the end-to-end, costs. Because when you're working with a distributor, there is deductions, there's hidden costs that you may not be immediately aware of. So having somebody that has been there, done that, advising you early on is so key. Having good sales help is so key. One of the mistakes that I did when I got started is, because my background is marketing, I invested more into marketing and less into sales. And then I quickly realized that and it corrected it. But this is a self-awareness journey as well. As you're building your product, you're discovering yourself as well. But it's very important to get the right advice and knock on as many doors, talk to as many people. Austin is so supportive, so friendly, so welcoming, but just talk, and put yourself out there. So I would really stress on the fact that if we're not watching our costs carefully, you can be very quickly out of business. So really dial down on every single decimal point, because we're in the business of pennies when it comes to food products.
Thank you very much. DJ, what would you add to that?
Well, I like to think that I speak for that non-traditional CPG person who is not going to have a large network. They're not going to have a lot of resources. They're not going to have a big community of advisors, at least in the beginning. And for those people, because the advice that Hema and Martha have given, it's very good and very standard. But for those outliers, those people who don't see a lot of representation that looks like them in the CPG space, I would say what I had to do was look for non-traditional routes. So I stress for that type of CPG founder, creativity, you gotta be creative. I would ask them the question for this dream that has to be made. And I would also ask the question. Can you hear me?
We lost you. Oh yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
And I love the superpower is just
yeah,
right
my video
there.
stopped. Hopefully it'll start back up. But the final thing I would ask them is, how hard are you willing to work? Because evidently, it takes, for as hard as you think it's going to be, I always tell people, count on it being 3 to 10 times harder.
Okay, and so when
go ahead.
So DJ, when you're talking about this, and as promised to each of the panelists, and for all of you listening and chiming in here, as you're putting in questions, I'm actually going to work these questions into the dialogue as opposed to just waiting at the end. So make sure if there's something that you want to ask at any given moment that you put it in the Q&A. So, as we were talking back on how you launched at farmers markets and from each one of you talked about, like Martha, you were talking about how many veggie burgers you had to sell or even had to make, right? Just in the beginning. And then Hema, you're talking about how many people you had to talk to, and DJ really having to be creative. So if you've got this idea, and ideally you would go to a farmer's market like each of you, one of our attendees wants to know, how long do you stay at the farmer's market? I mean, how long did each one of you, and how do you know that, right? Like, how do you know how long you need to be at the farmer's market and get that input from potential customers before you can launch? What does that look like?
So I will say that it's different for every product. For our product, which is a frozen chicken nugget product, we have to keep in mind that it's great to get input, but I didn't do it more than 5 months. It did not, what I figured out is to scale, and like Martha was saying, like we had to sell a lot of nuggets to have those economies of scale kick in, and we couldn't sell enough at the farmer's market to make a difference in our financial plan, in our financial model. So I would rather invest that time in focusing in stores, doing demos, and just working on further R&D, further expansion. You are your best salesperson, regardless of who you have on your team. I chose to stop the farmers market in 5 months and focus my energies in a different channel. But of course, every product is different. So that is a very, very subjective, channel strategy. It didn't, I had enough data collected and I chose to redistribute my time, but it could be different for a cheese product that's just there, or chips or snacks, which are a little bit easier. It's very hard to do a frozen product at farmers market. And I have my respect for everybody that does it more than a year.
Okay, let's go to Martha first before DJ. I want to hear about your snacks, but building on what him has said, even with the product, I mean, how long did you cook veggie burgers at the farmer's market?
I cooked veggie burgers at the farmer's market, probably like Hema, for about 5 months. I was there long enough to, and again, the veggie burgers were frozen. Frozen product is really hard in an August farmer's market. And so is when I started selling at the farmer's market in the spring, and I had gotten into Whole Foods by the summer. And I was still the only production person. So at a certain point, I got to a break in my time where I had to reinvest to demoing and supporting product where it could actually scale for me, which was Whole Foods. And at that point, I stopped selling at the farmer's market because I just couldn't do it all. It was literally, me making, delivering, and demoing. And so that was my similar path to him, really.
Okay. What about you, DJ? Your product is a little different. How long were you at the farmer's market?
I was at the farmer's market for 3 years. And I was at 2 farmers markets, and I made sure they were the 2 largest in Central Texas. And when I went to the farmer's market, they had a waiting list of like 200 vendors. And I just talked to them. I said, look, my goal is to bring diversity to this market because, it's important that people know that the farmer's market is a good resource outside of grocery stores for getting fresh produce and also for just getting really innovative products. And the African American community was largely missing despite the efforts that were being made to outreach. And I said, I think I can help. And so, I love Central Texas Farmers Market. SoPop will forever be a brand that has grown out of the farmers market. We're a farmers market brand first. And, I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity to not only open up SoPop for the farmers market for my brand, but I was able to bring 8 other businesses of color into those farmers markets as well. And the majority of them are still there. And so because I didn't have the financial backing that I needed, and that was only a part of it because we started getting grocery store offers when my company was a month and a half old. We were way too young. I didn't know enough. And I wanted to make sure that I learned the industry so I could make the best choices that I could. And so going through SKU, the Food Accelerator really helped. Not Food Accelerator, sorry, I misspoke, CPG Accelerator. There are other products there besides food. And that's where I got really, I moved from unconscious ignorance to conscious ignorance, meaning that at first I didn't even know what questions I should be asking. But after SKU, I at least had a better understanding of what questions I needed to ask. And then once I did that, I realized that the amount of resources that it would take for me to move into grocery would require me to make some decisions that I wasn't prepared to make at that time. And so I just chose to stay at the farmer's market, keep growing my local brand ambassadors, my famous soul poppers, and wait for the right opportunity to launch from there. And for me, that came in the form of a brick and mortar and opportunities to grow inside of various mall locations around the US and other places like stadiums and concert venues. And so that, the point is everybody has a different road. And my contribution, hopefully, is that there are more paths to success. God bless the grocery stores. We all need them. We all want our products to be there eventually. You need to have presence there. But I like to say that I speak for the people to say it's not necessarily the only way. There are other ways to achieve whatever your idea of success is. And I think that the grocery store should be a good mix in that. But for me, it's gonna include a lot of other different platforms as well.
Thank you, DJ. And DJ, one attendee wanted to ask a quick question, and then I want to move on to some production questions. But one attendee wants to know, what does it really mean that people were getting to know your brand during the farmers market during those years? What do you mean by that? Do you mean by tasting it, looking at the packaging? To you, what does getting to know your brand mean to you?
Well, it's kind of all of the above, because when you're in the farmers market, you're having that direct face-to-face interaction with the consumer. So you're getting to see their reaction. They're getting to give you live feedback. They're asking you direct questions, and you really have to know your product. When they ask a question, they expect you to know an answer. And so it really held me accountable for understanding what Soul Popped was growing to be. And then also building relationships from the beginning. I always said, Soul Pop is more than a transaction, it's a relationship. And so I really feel like our Soul Pop community, we really are, they've become family to me. They tell me when something's not right. I get that instant feedback. They tell me what they want. I don't have to go through informal means to get that feedback. And so it really is about the customer, it being more than just an opportunity for them to try it and buy it once, but to grow it where you have repeat customers who are going to buoy you and keep you uplifted during times like these. If I had not done the work with my Soul Pop community, Soul Pop Nation in the beginning, I don't think I would be here even now with what's happening with the pandemic, because these are the people who are reaching out to me going, hey DJ, what can I do to help? I know things are hard, what can I do? And I've ordered 25 bags and I'm sending them all over the country to my cousins so that they can, have Soul Pop and hopefully buy from you too. So that's what I mean. It's all just about.
Thank you very much. And I want to move on to a question by David Altunian, and it's really all about production. So what were the toughest elements of moving from the idea to a packaged product in terms of of production? So Hema, do you want to take that?
Yeah, certainly. There's a lot of learning involved because every manufacturing plant has a different business model, right? Some plants, and there's very few of them that are very openly and friendly to small quantities. So there is something we say in our CPG world, minimum order quantity, and your production volume has to be profitable, has to be meaningful enough to them. But so it comes from understanding how much business can you bring to the table with your co-packer, and always ask the question that, what if we were at this point, what can the price look like? Even if you have no idea, that if you're going to be doing 1 million pounds a year, but it's always good to understand because it gives you a perspective that are these people a long-time customer? Also moving your entire supply chain to where your manufacturing is, understanding that it's not just the price per pound for every ingredient that you're buying, but also the freight involved in getting those ingredients over to the manufacturing plant, and really understanding that what could be the other end-to-end costs when you're working with a co-packer. There is a book on Amazon now written by Bill Madden. It's about co-man versus con-man. It's the title is very cheesy, but he also really hits upon some of those things that the more aware we are, the better it is. Always have a lawyer review any co-packer contracts. If it is a term-based contract, which means that you're bound to doing an exclusive production with them. But there's a lot of learning involved, and the best way to do it is like talking to as many co-packers in the country, and understanding that it could take 3 to 6 months to get your product in and out and be ready to be manufactured at plant. And so, just it's talking again to both your co-packers as well as people in the industry in your same in your category. If you're in a chips category or frozen category, the factors are so different. So always get the right kind of advice, which is relevant to your product and in the current times, because CPG has seen a revolution in the past 3 to 4 years. It's not what it used to be 5 years ago.
Right. And Martha, we have an attendee who really wanted to follow up on your comment about potentially redefining what a home run is to you. And so let me ask this. I understand that there are multiple products in a specific space, and one doesn't have to be the market leader. But how have you managed that what your home run looks like, and how are you okay with that?
So my path with Hot Dang was not one where like I sold it for $1 million and had a big exit and then got to kick my heels up. I had never, I was a brand new entrepreneur when I started that. I was on a learning path the whole time. So actually relatively soon after I'd started, 6 months after I started, when I started getting traction in grocery stores, I wound up selling a majority stake to a friend in a friend's husband in Minneapolis who had worked at General Mills and had, just a different level of experience. So, and the co-packing conversation all comes into this, because I went from making it myself in Austin to then getting my first HEB order and trying to figure out how I was going to make that. So I actually had to spend a week a month in Boulder, Colorado at a place called the Kitchen Coop, making it there and managing a team there to make it at scale and then bringing it back to Texas. And then we've ultimately found a co-packer here who, once we got big enough, was able to take on our business. And so, and that co-packer wound up acquiring Hot Dang. So for me, the home run was not a financial reward necessarily. It was absolutely an education and an ability to sustain my life, my family's life, in doing something that I loved and believed in. And then I've gotten to go on and take the learning and apply it again in a more refined way with Hat Creek Provisions. I was the president of Hat Creek Provisions when they went from a little baby, like we have this idea, to 100 Whole Foods, and in doing that got to do the co-packing piece better, and got to do the marketing piece better and the communication better. And so my process, my home run, has been an iterative learning. And now I have a new startup, Waking Giants, and my hope there actually is to have a business that doesn't require an exit, that like can self-sustain, and it doesn't have to be bazillions of dollars, but I want a business that impacts people and brings people into their own voice and power. And that then to me is a home run. So, I'm probably not going to make the cover of Forbes, but that's all right.
That's all right.
Thank you very much. And I have a question for all of you, and all of you know Mark Nathan. And Mark has chimed in and, of course, asked, in my opinion, is asking really a pivotal question. I mean, how has being a CPG founder in Austin helped or held you back? And, as you have fellow entrepreneurs and founders and leaders as participants on this call to support you, what do you and we as founders need in Austin to continue to grow successful CPG companies and founders like yourselves? What do we need to be doing, or what's already here? DJ, you want to start real quickly?
First of all, hi, Mark. So yeah, Austin is a great place to launch a CPG company. The ecosystem here is really robust, and the people are really nice, and most people are are willing to share what they've learned with you. So I think there's a great network of support, due in large part to people like Mark Nathan. And it doesn't hurt that we have SKU, which is one of the largest and most respected CPG accelerators in the country, right here in Austin. And so I don't think that it's harmful in any way. I think that one of the challenges that Austin continuously work on improving is the diversity model. And of course, Austin is not that diverse of a city to start with, relative to some other communities. But I know that it can be an additional challenge for people of color like myself who are breaking into CPG, because it's not about, the playing field is level when you're talking about getting started. It's hard, it's just difficult doesn't matter who you are, but it becomes even more challenging when we look at the fact that not one size fits all as far as backgrounds and cultural relevance and experience. There are some differences. And so when those things pop up, which is not the majority of the time, but they do from time to time pop up, it would be wonderful for the Austin CPG community to have a greater focus and a greater network of support on just understanding what those differences and those nuances might be, not necessarily looking to fix them, but to understand them, because with understanding comes the ability to start slowly addressing things over time. And so that would be my hope for Austin. And one more thing that makes it a challenge for anyone in Austin is when you're fundraising or you're looking for partners. I think because we're in the middle of the country, and this is just an opinion, I don't have any, this is anecdotal. Sometimes it feels like it might be easier for CPG companies that are on either coast, because of the, like in California, the ecosystem that's there, if you're on the coast, doesn't make it impossible, but it does make it harder.
Thank you, DJ. Hema, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I want to add two things. One, we need to applaud and talk about failures more. What happens really is what I see happening a lot, I mean, not just in Austin, but in general, is the successes. Those unicorn successes are touted and talked about and applauded and placed on a pedestal so much that it can impact other journeys that are coming after them, because they're called unicorns for a reason, right? It doesn't happen with every business. The journey is hard, it's long. I mean, Beyond Meat is what, 11-year is success. So is Impossible Burger, Impossible Foods. We need to really make sure that we highlight that it takes time to build a business that is sustainable, that has profitability built in, and it's not just only top line. That's one that I want to make sure that we have as many sessions on the people that did not make it and what were those mistakes made, versus just keeping the successful people on the forefront again and again. And secondly, be very careful about what kind of advice you're giving to the people that are coming after you. What may be relevant to you 20 years ago is not relevant today. What may be relevant to your business that may have worked for you, like when you're negotiating commissions with brokers, I never give any more than 3%. Sure, you were at a $5 million revenue mark at that time. It doesn't apply to me who is making under $1 million or whatever you're making at the time. So it's not, be careful on what you tell other people, because it may not be applicable. I mean, the other thing, anyway, there's a list of bad advice that I could go on under, but be very careful and cognizant, and think before you give advice is one thing that I want to make sure that everybody that has been in business longer is always mindful of, is just be careful.
Thank you, Hema. Martha, do you have anything to add before I want to get through some of these questions that I think can be answered pretty quickly, and I want to honor these from the attendees. Do you want to add anything quickly?
Yeah, super quick. The Austin community is really supportive. Like
I was able to connect with many entrepreneurs. They were really generous with their time and support. B, we are missing a good co-packing solution, an interim co-packer, and then a scale co-packer. So if you look at the difference in the Boulder CPG space and the Austin CPG space, Boulder has incredible co-packers, two really big ones that everybody scales with, and so they are able to scale within their own ecosystem. And I think that we lose an opportunity there that could be really beneficial to some of the rural communities here. But like, we could have a co-packing space in Elgin that could employ people well and keep our local economy healthy. So that's mine.
Thank you. So 2 quick questions, and each of you can kind of answer them with just a couple of words each, because there are some really good questions here. So first question is, how many years until from either the product idea to when you hit the shelf and you made profit, or you felt like you made it? Could be either. And the second question is, do you employ anyone, or at the time you had your business, like with Hot Dang, did you have any people employed at that time? Hema, those 2 questions?
It took me about a year to figure out our manufacturing and supply chain before we could get into stores. I still don't have anybody on my payroll. Overhead is a very important element to me. I want to keep my costs low. So we have part-time contractors that we bring. Sometimes I bring them on a short-term basis. Sometimes they're with me, the whole time. But no employees so far. And until I'm based on my model, I think I'm just going to stop there because you said a few words.
Thank you, Hema. Martha?
At Hot Dang, I always really believed in demoing and invested in that. And I liked somebody from my team doing it. So we did spend on overhead there. But that was really, like Hema said, it's like, it's really tight. So.
Okay. DJ?
Soul Pop has 6 employees. Okay. At the farmers market, I would hire people to help out there. And we focus on hiring people who may be harder to employ, like older. We have a focus on like older staff members who may have aged out of the normal work population, and then also people like formerly homeless or formerly incarcerated.
Thank you. And for each of you, or just one of you, there's another question on, in the early stages, how do you go about calculating the selling price of your product? Did you do any studies? Did you do any research? If you could quickly answer that, that would be great. Hema?
Standing in the store shelf, looking at other products. I know Martha and I also did this a few times, walked inside Whole Foods stores, but just looking at other products in the category, and sometimes getting very creative with it as well, because your product doesn't have to fit in a certain shelf. If you can carve out a certain niche where you can get more traffic, but it still is okay with the retailer, that also helps. But only standing right there, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars in analysis and pay a consultant. You can do this yourself. Just have to stand there and watch how people are buying.
And are any of you able to use, this is another question, are any of you able to use or source ingredients that are grown in Central Texas?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. DJ, yes?
Yeah.
When I started it, I used it. Yeah.
Okay. And interestingly, there's another question that kind of takes us back, and I want to do another minute or 2 of questions, and then I really want to ask you one last question before we end. Did any of you do any shelf life studies before you went to the farmer markets? Martha? No, DJ?
Sort of,
but nothing.
But it wasn't very
formal,
scientific.
right?
It was not.
It was
you
not.
Just know when your product is not sellable anymore. It's like, oh.
Okay.
And the freezer, yeah. And the freezer is a great preservative. So, I calculated it based on my ingredients and how long they lasted in the freezer, and did, all sorts of nerdy research like that, like indexing the things against each other.
Okay.
but that, and then when we grew up and went into, bigger facilities, we got like official shelf testing.
Okay.
I will add though that it's good for you to document your own product yourself. So I still have bags sitting in my freezer that are dated 4 years ago when there was nothing more than just a little nugget in a bag. But I still have samples sitting in the freezer dated for your own record keeping purposes. And Austin has a great company. It's called Food and Ag Lab. And Darren Toxo is a great guy doing shelf life studies. It's local. It's very approachable. So if that is something for your product with cheese, I would definitely, something like, some products are more sensitive than others, but like ours, Martha was saying, frozen is you just don't need preservatives for a certain period of time.
Thank you, Hema. There's a question about range me, and it says, do you have advice on how to move from the farmer's market to retail in present times with range me in place for buyers now? Have any of you had success with using range me? And any advice on how to connect with buyers? And we don't have long for that question, but do any of you have any gut reactions or direct feedback for that question? No, not that one.
Not worth it.
Okay.
I mean, it's expensive, and for the longest time, there was huge controversies on how it's not the premium membership on RangeMe is not worth it. There is a very simple backdoor way to get on RangeMe. If you Google the retailer name and you hashtag, people can ping me, or maybe we can do a follow-up on the website, but you can get in through RangeMe and directly submit to your retailers. There's just a hack behind it. So you can manually enter the URL, but don't go for the premium membership. But today with COVID-19, it could be different. Until now, it was not worth it.
Okay, and I have, DJ, I want to give you, we don't have much time left, but, we lost you at a central part when you were sharing your best tips and what you've learned. So I'd love to give you, 20 or 30 seconds, and let's see if we can capture that. We've had a few attendees who have reached out and really wanted to hear that from you and just didn't get the opportunity to because of the video. So do you have some, and I will promise everyone on here, I'm happy to get a recap and some things from all panelists and we can send out just in case the video doesn't work. But I want to give you a few seconds to maybe recap really quickly what you had shared with us.
Well, I just wanted to, sorry about that. We had a storm blow through. So basically creativity, how, you got to be creative because one model is not going to necessarily fit all. How much are you willing to sacrifice to get where you want to be? Because it is a lot of hard work. And the third one, I'm drawing a blank on, but basically I know, at least for me, just understanding that I was gonna have to find creative solutions to what other people consider to be mainstream solutions, just weren't gonna work for me. And so I had to find other routes, and I also had to be willing to, like anything, put the time in, but there's a lot of sacrifice that goes with successfully launching a CPG brand. When I think of that third one, I'll let you know quickly.
Thank you, DJ. And before we cut this off and really say thank you and say goodbye to everyone, I want to give you each an opportunity to answer two things. One, what has been the most challenging part of this journey for you, which is a question from one of our attendees. And then second, how are you pivoting in COVID, and are you doing okay right now? Hema, why don't we start with you, and then we'll close it out with DJ.
The challenging part is manufacturing. It is the Achilles heel of any CPG product. You may have a beautiful brand, beautiful, loyal audience, but if you can't fulfill orders, and if you can't sustain your innovation pipeline, it just kills your business right away. You can't scale, you can't meet your revenue targets. So really investing the time in finding a good manufacturing partner, it's just the utmost. It's very, very important. And investors don't love it when you build your own facility unless it's tens of millions of dollars and you have that kind of financial growth plan to support it. And the COVID-19 has really impacted us. Absolutely. We were supposed to launch with many hundreds of stores this year, which we may be able to, but we don't know that. So we are pivoting to really,
You're okay.
Okay.
You're totally good.
To shelf-stable products that are e-commerce friendly. And we are negotiating rates with FedEx. So we're getting steeper discounts, way steeper than, if I hadn't really pushed them on it, like, hey, look, you got to do this. So really negotiating the rates on every element of your distribution chain to get your products to customers is something that we're doing. But being small gives you an advantage of being nimble. So we're launching a lot more products than we would have ever had if there was no COVID-19 that will really meet those quick meals needs of customers. So that's the two ways we're responding to COVID-19.
Thank you, Hema. Martha?
The most challenging part for me, and this is like a life always thing, is like my idealism gets in the way of things. And there are certain things that I wasn't able to like sell enough veggie burgers to get to the end by myself, whatever that means. So really like owning my story in a way that allows me to like really be proud of the thing that I built and the integrity with which I held it, and not necessarily applying, the Forbes success story to it. And then COVID-19 has been, so Waking Giants is a totally different animal. It is about empowerment and, humanity, power, truth, and love, and understanding, where the alleys of power are and how we can participate in them. That is a hard thing to do when people are literally worried about like their most basic survival needs. And so our pivot in this moment has been to really like lean in on community support and offering space to have hard conversations and talk to each other, like help just keep the connection. So
Thank you,
and
Martha.
I do want to say thank you to Lee, and then thank you to Hema and Dee. And these women, I know Hema well because we have like actually spent time together. She will stop at nothing. She is a hustler and she is the stuff that dreams are made of. And she will make this crafty counter work no matter what. And Dee, I don't even know if you know this, but my kids fell in love with you at the Mueller Farmers Market. And like, it doesn't surprise me at all that what you built is carrying you through this, because the way that you show up for community and speak the truth and advocate for better support for diversity and bring people into the farmers market has fundamentally changed the farmers market, but also the CPG scene for the better. And I just think that it's amazing. And I've been cheering you on forever, and it's just a pleasure to share space. Yeah.
Thank you, Martha.
That was so nice.
Well,
DJ, we have just a minute, and I want to make sure you chime in here before we have to close it out.
Great time with you guys. Thank you for including me with this lovely group of women. They are powerhouses. The biggest challenge for me was finding a co-packer who could pop my product in coconut oil. Because believe it or not, in the entire country, Martha, what you said was spot on about the co-packing scene. I couldn't find a co-packer in the entire country who could co-pack me in coconut oil. And finally I found one. So that's been the hardest challenge. So now I have one, yay. And just moving forward, I just want to encourage people. You hear about the people who have these multi-million-dollar exits. I am proud of the fact, you just find what your success is. Start a company with $53. We just hit $500,000 in revenue and sales. And that's with no financing. That's with no investors. That's off of the back of one woman. And to me, that makes me a success in my book. And so God bless America, where you can define your own success. You can live on your own terms. And if you work hard enough, you can forge your own path ahead. And I'm thankful for that.
Sounds a lot like a home run to me.
Right? Each
Thanks,
one of
Martha.
you. Okay, to honor our last question, one person can answer. How do you find out the requirements for packaging details, i.e. ingredients, lot number, etc.? Where do you go?
Ooh.
Hema?
Recipal is a free software that you can develop your own nutrition panel. I still do that. The lot number and ingredient number depends. It's just you make up your lot number. If you have good record keeping, you just store it in a manual for always be ready for an audit. And really, you can do this very easily, very simply on your own.
Thank you.
We used to use our dates as lot codes, production date.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so you three are dream panelists, and I find you to be authentic and forward thinking and innovating and empowering. And it has been an absolute pleasure to highlight you and to spend time with you this morning. So thank you for spending time with us and for sharing your stories. And I have no doubt you have helped other entrepreneurs today. And so with that, we want to close it out with making sure everyone knows we have a couple of upcoming webinars. One is an Austin Gives Businesses Give Back during COVID, which will be on Friday, May 8th, and Amazon B2B Learning to Buy and Sell on Amazon, which is on May 13th. And both registration links can be found on the Austin Chamber. And once again, thank you all for this opportunity and for allowing us to spend time with you this morning. I hope you all have a wonderful and safe day with your families, and much love to you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you all.
everybody.
Thank you, Lee.
Bye, everyone.